Hello, thank you for watching another video. And also, thank you very much for emailing me because your emails are giving me ideas of what you would like to see in a video. So, today I want to address a question in an email that's asking how do we build our students' fluency while they're reading? So, one way to do this is teaching students how to address words that they don't know in their reading, giving them strategies so that when they come across a word that they don't know, that possibly they would use the context, that they would reread and try and figure out by using the context. So when I use this simple acronym, I always want to think about standards first when I create a lesson. And of course, using the context to build vocabulary is meeting a standard, and it will build the fluency. And I think of my students' individual needs, and I think of my students who really just skip the words. And a lot of our students do that because I do that too. So I think about that and want to meet in and make sure that they're reading books that they can read that are a little bit that have are a little bit difficult for them but not too hard, and that they can build their vocabulary in their reading. And I think about that, how am I going to model the lesson? And I can model it in my read aloud. What is it that I do as a reader when I come across words I don't know? And it does help my fluency when I know more vocabulary words. And then I think about the practice. And in the email, it was very helpful that someone shared with me that many teachers use the readers for independent reading. So my students could all have different readers, and that's fine on their level, and they can practice this strategy right in their little reader. And for me, then at that point in the independent practice, that I would move around and help them as they're learning. And I could evaluate them by, at the end of class, maybe putting a paragraph up on the board and underlining a certain word and asking them to read the paragraph and then use the context to figure out the meaning of the word. So I'm going to do just a quick lesson. And this is how I work with my read aloud. So I've probably read a few pages, and then I come across and I would say to my students, so this is the lesson, I'll pretend like you are my students. So wonderful readers, let's continue today. We're going to read The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes, and we read the beginning part yesterday. And as I was preparing for today's class, I came across a couple words that I wasn't sure the meaning. And sometimes as a reader, I just skip the words, and that's not really a good idea as readers. So what I want to do is teach you a strategy that I use is that I reread the paragraph. Instead of just skipping the words, when I come across a word I don't know, I will reread the paragraph to then think about what would make sense. What does that word mean? So we did this. With the word contrary the other day, and I want to do this with the word incredulously. Everyone say incredulously, incredulously. We're going to come across this word on page 15, and then we're going to stop reading, and you're going to read independently and try it in your own books, okay? So I will show you what I do when I come across the word incredulously, and then we'll try together stowedly, and then you'll try and practice in your own books. Okay, so Wanda, Peggy would say in the most courteous manner, as though she were talking to Miss Mason or the principal, perhaps. Wanda, she'd say, giving one of her friends a nudge, tell us, how many dresses did you say you had hanging up in your closet? 100, said Wanda. 100, exclaimed all the girls incredulously, and the little girls would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Incredulously. I've heard that word because Mrs. Miller has told us how to say it, but I'm not sure, how to say that word. It might be what I'm thinking as a reader. Okay, so me personally, incredulously, I might skip it, but I don't want to. I want to know what it means. So as a reader, I say to myself, I reread 100 dresses, and it has like an exclamation point, and it says, exclaimed all the girls incredulously, and the little girls would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Incredulously. By the way that the writer here has them all exclaim, and all the girls stop, and they look over, and they stop playing their game, incredulously, I think that's unbelieving. 100 dresses, exclaimed all the girls incredulously. I could also put that synonym in there and think unbelievingly. And the little girls would stop playing hopscotch. Okay, so do you see what I just did as a reader? I've slowed down, I reread, and the more vocabulary words that I know, the smoother that I will read, the more fluently I will read. So let's try this together. We're going to come across the word stowedly. Listen for the word stowedly, and then we're going to turn and talk with our partner and try and figure out what does stowedly mean. So I go on to read. Yeah, all lined up, said Wanda. Then her thin lips drew together in silence. What are they like? All silk, I bet, said Peggy. Yeah, all silk, all colors. Velvet too? Yeah, velvet too. 100 dresses, repeated Wanda stolidly, all lined up in my closet. Then they'd let her go, and then before she'd gone very far, they couldn't help bursting into shrieks and peals of laughter. Stowedly. Stowedly. Let me repeat this, and I want you to listen to. I'm going to reread it, and I want you to listen and use the context and try and figure out what does stowedly mean. Yeah, velvet too. 100 dresses, repeated Wanda stowedly, all lined up in my closet. So turn and talk and try and figure out the context there. The children are unbelieving that she has 100 dresses in her closet, and she says it stowedly. No explanation point there. So turn and talk. Okay, so I'm hearing some students say, seriously. Someone says, without a doubt. That's fantastic. Okay, so when we reread that together, stowedly, seriously, firmly. Oh, I love that you said firmly. So let's see that. Yeah, velvet too, 100 dresses, repeated Wanda firmly, all lined up in my closet. All right. Do you see what we just did as readers? So when we come across a word that we don't know, reread, try and figure out what it means in the context. Later on, you could check it in the dictionary. That would be great. But do you see we can reread and we can put synonyms in there and figure out what words are meaning. And we could even track those in our notebooks too to check them later. But that's going to help us to read more fluently. So in your independent reading books today, what I'd like you to do is I would like you, when you come across a word that you don't know, I want you to reread. And I want you to think about other words that could make sense in place of that word. Those are called synonyms. So similar words that could make sense. And then I want you to jot down those words, and then we'll double check to make sure that you have used the context correctly to figure out those words. All right, so we're going to read for the next 20 minutes in our own independent reading books. And by the end, I want you to jot down maybe 2 words that you came across today that you used the context to figure out and what you think those words mean. All right, so that would be my lesson. And at that point, the practice would take place, and I would be moving around my room, and my students would be using this. So of course, I probably read a little bit longer. I don't want to pull out too many vocabulary words to stop and show my thinking to. 2 would probably be enough, possibly 3, depending how long I'm reading to my students. But teaching them that skill, I teach that skill over and over again. And how I prepare for the lesson is I look ahead, I read ahead and come across words that I know that they won't know the meaning of, and that the context really helps them. And so I might even, this is an example, now we already did this word for turn and talk, but I have on the board how I said, have the paragraph written and have the word underlined. And you could do that for another word, and that could be something that they do at the end of class. So the whole class has heard the read aloud, the whole class has heard you use that word, and you just put that paragraph up on the board and underline it and have them write in their books, have them reread that paragraph, think about the context that they've already been listening, so see that's building comprehension through listening as well, and have them write what they think that word means from the context. Okay, so that is it for today. The lesson of building vocabulary and using context to build vocabulary, and modeling our thinking in the read aloud, and having students practice in their independent reading, and then always having a wrap up to sort of evaluate and assess if they've learned. I will look for more emails. Thank you so much for emailing me, and I hope this was helpful, and have a great day.